So, hey, everybody, what's up? What's happening? This is Brandon here. We've got an exciting day. It's a themed day because, look, just doing these by themselves, we bounce to and fro. We have so many things that go wrong every single day that it feels like we've got to touch a little bit on all of them. But what we're going to do instead, we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to dive in because honestly, like to be really real with y'all, we ran into some stuff that really pissed us off today. um, this obviously everybody is mad at Joe Kennedy about this recent police violence, and everybody has been tweeting their condolences, their concerns. And unfortunately, like when you look at the Democrats that have been doing this, for the most part, it's been like extremely generic, extremely vague, because like they want, it's very clear that the game is up in terms of they want to do the bare minimum to make sure that the people who are supposed to be voting for them are in line and doing what they're supposed to be doing and being like good foot soldiers for the Democratic Party. But at the same time, there's absolutely no desire to confront power, to piss off police unions. The word police was not even used in Liz Warren's like, oh, condolences, sadness, like violence is bad. We should confront violence whenever we see it. And this Joe Kennedy tweet is kind of emblematic. And like, Joe's done the apology. You know, everybody says sorry when some stuff like this happens, but I don't know how y'all feel about it. But for me, the problem is not, did you say sorry? Did you have a boo boo? There's a feeling that this reflects the core mindset of candidates for office, especially if they're donor fueled and funded candidates for office. They end up saying like stuff like this. And so I want to just kind of zoom this up. Hopefully, y'all can kind of see this in a bigger way. We can't say lives matter and then leave them unprotected. We can't say lives matter and then deny them justice. We can't say lives matter and then allow them to be taken away by racism, by violence, and by hate. I'm going to let y'all like stew with that for a few seconds. Like, do y'all see anything missing from that? Like, there's just a tendency to make these things so corny and so anodyne and so vague because it's important not to ever piss off anybody. Can I like explain some shit to y'all about who's gonna get pissed off by what? Your mannerisms and your level of politeness and decorum will not make a difference when you are confronting power. Um, Being polite doesn't, like, you can be polite because your inner soul, your inner spirit is driven to accentuate the warmth of human kindness, but it really doesn't matter. And Bernie Sanders is a great example of this because Bernie Sanders, aside from like Jeff Bezos and some of the most powerful people in the world, he was not somebody that was eager to make enemies, even rhetorically. Um, and in fact, when you ask them, like, what's wrong with the rich morally, Bernie would be like, well, nothing exactly. They just don't know any better. And that's like a very benign explanation for when power attacks people over and over and over and over and over again. They don't know. They don't know. No one's told them. Their heartstrings haven't been tugged in the right way. So knowing that, you know, this guy can be the sweetest guy in the world, but what was the media portrayal? It was, this guy's a scumbag. This guy's a radical. This guy gives me the chills. I don't want to be alone in the room with him. Like, there were certain stages on MSNBC where the shit about literal Donald Trump was less vitriolic than the stuff about this guy, Bernie Sanders, who's very sweet. You can go sweeter. You can go Marianne Williamson, and it's literally nothing but hugs and kindness and gentle and the warmth of human affection. The shit doesn't matter because they're going to find a way to demonize you because of your actual position on the distribution of power. People can look through all the signifiers. People are smarter than you give them credit for. So Kennedy is here at long last. We're going to bring Kennedy in here, see if these streams pick up, see if we can get like a few more viewers.
Yeah,
I see your face there. Yeah, good Lord. So we were just I was just talking about Joe Kennedy. The fact that Joe Kennedy like doesn't want to use the phrase like police violence. He doesn't want to use the word like black people. Like, and we mentioned that he did apologize eventually.
Yes.
But it just goes to show that just ingrained is a complete lack of courage to confront power, even rhetorically. And I would say that kind of summarizes the Dems and the Kennedy candidacy as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is it's fucking ridiculous. Everything that like a centrist has ever said about a progressive primarying a Democrat applies perfectly to this race, but yet somehow it's okay because he's a Kennedy.
Well, let's actually break. I mean, you want to break those factors down?
Let me break this down a little bit because, like, here's the biggest thing. Okay, one of the big arguments that they've made, like that people have made about not primarying like established Dems in safe seats, is that it's a waste of money. Okay, now in the case of a lot of progressive campaigns, a lot of progressives don't raise or spend all that much money to take their shot.
True.
Like a lot of the progressives that we know, some of whom are, looking good in their elections or have even won, have done it on a few tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in a lot of cases. On the other hand, this Joe Kennedy, Ed Markey thing has turned into a millions of dollars being wasted debacle. This is one of the big talking points that they literally have thrown at us over and over again about primarying. And here it is. It's actually happening in this one. And all these fucking establishment types are, they're silent basically.
It's a safe seat, right? It's relatively safe.
It's extremely safe. Not a swing seat at all.
Right. So this isn't like we can hang on to the seat with Joe. It's not like Doug Jones is getting primaried in Alabama.
Right. And it's right. If Joe Kennedy was running to primary Doug Jones or something, you know what I mean? Like I might not even be upset right now. I might not have anything to say. Because like you say, it's like, that's a seat that's really unsafe. And like, there's definitely, like, that's something that needs to be thought about in terms of like, is he a strong enough candidate to hold that seat? Ed Markey is great. Ed Markey is like, he's like the best person in the Senate right now, pretty much. He's up there with Bernie, like, just in terms of like the stuff that he votes for, the stuff that he pushes. He's the co-author of the Green New Deal. He's not, everybody's happy with him, basically. Like, if you're an establishment Dem, probably relatively happy with him. If you're a progressive, probably relatively happy with him. Like, nobody hates Ed Markey. And here's Joe Kennedy being like, no, we got to get this. It's time for some fresh blood up in here.
It's my turn. It's my turn. I've had to wait a whole like 6 years in the House. and by the way, it's getting primaried in his House seat.
The best case scenario, of course, would be that not only does he lose to Ed, but that he also loses his fucking seat.
I would love for Estane Lucky and Ed Markey to come on our show. If you're watching this and you're one of those teams, make it happen. Yeah. Because we will be the deciding factor. Just getting the bump from us will just do it all.
That's right.
But before we move on, I just want to reiterate the whole list: safe district, loyal voter, anti-Trump, more and better Democrats. You remember back when that was the thing back in like 2007? Just all of it. He's a more and better Democrat, and they're getting rid of him for a primary to the right of Ed Markey.
Yes.
I mean, Joe Kennedy is just in that Christy Smith mole of
He's
someone who has learned the
essentially a
password.
blue dog.
Yes, essentially a blue dog that's learned the social justice passwords and catchphrases, and has
Right.
like some advisors that sprinkle that in. But it's definitely not like running to prevent the ice caps from melting or anything like that. It's just trying to move up, and there's been no blowback. There's been no the party blocking Ted Kennedy. In fact, Steny Hoyer actually went to a fundraiser for Joe Kennedy. So I mean,
Right.
it's not universal. I'd say
It's not universal,
the
but
majority
yes.
of the party is supporting Markey. But no, it's not like Kennedy's being punished.
No,
for running
he's not
the
being shut out. He's not
being
being
shunned. It's just like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, you're doing.
he's getting access to all the resources and all the whatever.
Yeah,
You know, they're not restricting his ability to, you know, access voter lists
yeah.
or DNC phone banking tools or any of the kind of stuff that they've done to progressives. None of that's happening to Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy is just getting all of the treatment. Like, yes, this is fine. This is normal. This is what we do. We have primaries, which honestly, great.
Would be great if that was the way it was.
Apply that to everyone else, you
right,
fuckers.
Exactly.
Right. Like, you know, like I think I don't have a problem with primaries. I don't think that Joe Kennedy primarying Ed Markey is a bad thing per se. I think it's that the way it's handled is being hypocritical, and that I hope Joe Kennedy loses because he sucks. Those two things are true.
Whenever I see this dude out here doing this thing, I always think of Rebecca Parson, who, like, as soon as she got any traction, was like, well, the DNC cut me off. I can't use Van. I've got to go buy all this shit independently.
Right.
Take a few coins out of Joe Kennedy's fat purse and let him get his own van and let him get his own list.
Exactly.
Since we hate primary challenges, it's just with exceptions, and the exceptions for the Democrats, I mean, are always based on cash. That's why fucking Bloomberg got the rules changed so that he didn't have to like sign up to even run for president until like 2 weeks before the damn debate.
Right.
They were like, "Oh yes, this way, Mr. Bloomberg. You've got money. Here you are." Just some real Jeeves shit, some real Jeeves energy from the Democrats.
Yeah, they literally just ushered Bloomberg through the door like it was no big deal, and that's basically the treatment Joe Kennedy's getting. The arguments I've seen in favor of him running are so stupid and like disturbing, honestly. Yeah. Like, oh, it's a dynasty. He's a good, the Kennedys, oh, just like that kind of like shit. Nobody actually has like a real reason to vote for him. There isn't like a policy that he supports that Ed Markey doesn't support that's significant, that, you know, every single argument is just like, oh, I saw this completely ridiculous article. This was like a Joe Biden thing. I saw this completely ridiculous article where this person was saying like, Joe Kennedy should just find some good surrogates and stop speaking.
He does have surrogates. I saw someone actually went through the text of one of Ed Markey's climate bills, and this was somebody who was on like the Joe Kennedy media team and was like, I ran a text search of the bill, and environmental racism isn't mentioned. Communities of color isn't mentioned. What about frontline communities? And you got to remember, like, this fucking bill was written in like 2008. So we're talking about like way before the discourse was like structured like that. But they're trying to time travel, just whatever they got to do. I do want to mention
I just want to say, what is up with establishment Dems and this whole thing of like proving that our heroes weren't woke in the past when their heroes aren't woke now? Like,
yo,
they're like, look at Ed Markey didn't put the right language in his bill. Joe Kennedy is invested in fossil fuels to the tune of around $2 million. Directly invested. This is not like an indirect. This is not like a shell game.
He's in an index fund, and the fund was in another fund. We're not doing that.
He owns stock in oil companies. He may have inherited most of it, but I'm pretty sure a rich person is allowed to divest at any time from something like that.
It's time to make the money. He makes the Italian. I'm Irish and Italian today.
Yeah, so like this whole thing of like his his money, it's like, yeah, they want to call Ed Markey's language of his bill. The whole reason that Joe Kennedy is running is to crush the Green New Deal because he makes money off of oil. Let's just be completely
real.
about this.
Real. Right.
Like, that is what's happening right now with the Joe Kennedy thing. Joe Kennedy makes money off of oil, and he said, I'm sure some DNC headhunter like came to him and was like, "You want to get Ed Markey out and crush this Green New Deal?" And Joe Kennedy was like, "Hell yeah.
It's time for some new energy." That's what they always say. I'm young energy. And here's the thing. It is time for some young energy, but this guy ain't the energy, man. Let me tell you. It just feels like such a platitude for this dude.
Joe Kennedy's energy is older than Bernie Sanders.
Yes, it's like that Pete Buttigieg,
right?
The most boomer friendly. I mean, it's also marketed at people who like. I mean, we have a generation coming up now who has no experience of any Kennedy in leadership of any kind. And obviously there's also you were talking about comparing Joe Kennedy to Joe Biden. And I think just that weird branding of being kind of similar to some other person that came before you. Don't you feel like he's getting a little bit of the Ted Kennedy? Like they're thinking that he's Ted Kennedy? Because, like, well, his last name is Kennedy. He has Kennedy politics. But Joe is to the right of basically any national Kennedy that I can think of.
Also, let's be real. Ted Kennedy.
That's true.
Somebody that we could level some criticism at, actually. People tend to think of the Kennedys this very idealistic sense, primarily because of JFK. And first of all, JFK
was more right wing than
he was way right wing at first, and he came around.
Right.
He changed his like views, and became more left wing. And so when he's remembered in people's minds as a relatively left wing kind of like hero of the people, that was something he came to like 5 minutes before he was shot. Like,
God damn.
Like, I'm barely exaggerating. And so when we think of the Kennedys, people think of the Kennedys as like
the heroes of the left wing,
that they are like, kind of on par with like FDR or something like that, right? No, Ted Kennedy hurt Carter. Ted Kennedy fucking fucked up a lot of progressive shit in his time on his own merit. So even if you were expecting Ted Kennedy, fuck that. But you're not even going to get that. You're not even going to get Ted Kennedy. Put that tweet back on the screen, though. We didn't talk about that. You pulled it up, but then I was just ranting.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention Karishma popped in onto the comments. He is the epitome of a political shortcoming. And let me just say, that's right.
That's correct.
That's 100% accurate. And yeah, we're hoping to have Karishma on this stream like next week. But like Karishma, by the way, just come on whenever you want. We'll give you the link. Hop on. But yeah, let's go back to this quote.
Let's go to this. This is amazing.
And this was last year, roughly. Why on earth? And this was him as a House rep. Why on earth did Rep. Joe Kennedy vote with Republicans to give Donald Trump the more usable nuclear weapons that he's disturbingly craving? That is not how progressive champions should be voting. God damn. Joe responds, "You're right. Meant to vote yes. It was an honest mistake on my part. There's no need for these weapons. Keep up your advocacy."
Meant to vote yes.
This is some extreme Lincoln Chafee energy, first of all. Like, I love that when Lincoln Chafee fucks up like this, it's the end of his life. Like, it's just like, you're in the shadow realm, buddy. No comment. You're done. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. But with Joe Kennedy, it's like, yeah, shit does happen when you're dealing with legislation on nuclear weapons. Can y'all imagine just like Bernie Sanders accidentally vote? First of all, I don't even know how you accidentally vote the wrong way on a bill. Actually, no, I do understand someone voting the wrong, because when we're talking to people, we have those confusions all the time. When somebody's like, "Oh, weren't you supposed to vote no? Aren't people supposed to vote no on that?" No, it's a resolution to stop a bit. Like, all that stuff does happen. However, you have one job. You've got
Yeah,
one.
this is literally you're getting paid the big bucks to just do this, to just pick up the correct stamp and put it on the paper.
Why can't you
And
just look around and look at who the other members of your part, where the other
yeah,
members of your
couldn't
party
you
are
just
voting?
ask Elizabeth Warren how she was voting
Yeah,
or
what
something?
are
You
Liz, what are
know?
you doing? I'm voting.
Uh,
I'm voting no. All right, I'm voting no too. Easy.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Call Bernie. Ask what Bernie's voting.
Yeah,
He'll definitely end
Bernie,
up on the
how would you vote on this? He'll be
I
like,
am
"This is
voting.
how you should vote." Okay, great, done it, did it. Like, I mean, can you remember how big of a deal they made out of Bernie not voting to pass gun control 30 years ago?
Yes,
Like,
that was, disqualified for life.
yes, like you're not a real advocate of anything. You voted against a gun control bill decades ago, and he's like, first of all, things have changed since then. Second of all, I didn't think it was a very good bill. And believe me, go back, look at the bill that he said he voted no on. It wasn't that great. It was nothing special. It was a very mediocre, just half-assed gun control bill that like other people voted no on too. You know, like it wasn't like it was Bernie Sanders was the only person in the party voting no on that particular bill. That was disqualifying. But literally giving Donald Trump nuclear weapons, which he is talking about testing. If y'all didn't see that yet, he is talking about resuming nuclear weapons tests for the first time in this country in decades. That's not a long time ago, no big deal situation. Even that's like right now happening, and Joe Kennedy's just like, oh, I fucked up my vote, and everyone's just like, well, okay, I guess Joe, he's a Kennedy. I'm sure he didn't mean it.
Yes, he's sorry. He didn't mean it. It's his mistake and his bad. This is like something that just seems to continually happen with Joe. Can we talk about his marijuana? I used to be able to say there's nobody in the entire Democratic Party that's still on the, like when Joe was originally talking about this, I was like, who still has this view anymore? Like, he's to the right of Amy Klobuchar on this issue. He's to the right of Mayor Pete on this issue. Like, there's a consensus around like drug legalization, specifically marijuana legalization. Like, we're all over that. And if y'all will remember, we were on the podcast and we were talking because this was when Pete Buttigieg was like, is he gonna pull this off? And I was like, no, it's not possible. But the media like to play around with, is he gonna make it? And so Leia was like, I will never vote for Pete Buttigieg. He's a piece of shit, and I'll never. And I was like, listen, he's not great, but the one thing you will get out of it is you'll get to smoke some weed when this is all over. That's one redeeming quality of Pete's platform. And it turns out Joe Kennedy, no.
And he ran. This is the thing. He's so inconsistent like this. He ran on legalization.
Right.
Maybe not like strongly, but he did indicate while he was running many times that like, yeah, we should do this. Everybody wants this. We're going to do it.
And he flopped on it as soon as he got in.
And then pretty much the second he was elected, he was like, well, aren't y'all worried about addiction? And it's like, this is a 40-year-old argument. Like, yeah, here it is. Here he is. He's running in 2018 to keep his seat. And he's like, yeah, we got to legalize. And he flopped on that immediately, folks. And he was like I said, he's like, I work with people who are addicts and I'm worried about this harming people, blah, blah. Like, just the complete most backwards, dishonest, ridiculous argument that
you want me to read
a million times from your conservative uncle.
You want me to read this? Yes. My reluctance to embrace legalization, because I know there will be some people who are just listening to the show. My reluctance to embrace legalization stems primarily from one place: my ongoing work with the mental health and addiction communities. I've seen the devastating effects of drugs that are used and abused. I've met family after family torn apart by addiction. Again, we're talking about addiction to weed. And I've heard repeatedly from mental health advocates on the front lines who have grave concerns about what access to marijuana might do for those prone to abuse. They worry about research showing marijuana can be addictive, particularly for adolescents. So
you ever heard of a family torn apart by marijuana? If you know a family that was torn apart by marijuana, I want you to comment and let us know about it, or like DM us on Twitter or something, because I'm all ears. I've certainly heard of people that, you know, oh, my cousin started smoking pot and he became like a lazy so-and-so who just works at McDonald's or whatever. Okay, well, that's maybe too bad for your cousin on some levels if he's, you know, if like marijuana has caused him to become a like more unmotivated person or whatever. Like that's arguably too bad for your cousin. That doesn't tear your family apart. That's just like, okay, I've got a cousin who's a little bit of a fuck up. Everybody's got some of those cousins. They still come to family barbecue. Maybe they come smelling like weed a little bit. Who cares? You know, like it's not a big deal.
You got a real interesting family. No, we all have a cousin like that.
The only families that have been torn apart by weed are like those hyper conservative puritanical families that just like love to throw their kids out of the house for any reason. You know, like we found nail polish in your room. You're out. You're you know, you're gone, or what? It's anything they can find. You know, any excuse that they can find type of people. But like in the real world, where like, you know, where like people aren't just making issues out of anything that they possibly can to just have an excuse to torture their children or whatever, the way a lot of conservatives seem to want to.
Right.
In the real world, no family has ever been torn apart by weed. Well, that is the most absurd thing.
People have had their families torn apart by weed arrests.
Yes.
People wilding out like, damn, I had 2 joints into my back pocket. Now I got like 5 years in prison. Nah, that's not good. That's bad.
Joe Kennedy, you want families to stop being torn apart by weed? Legalize it so that people aren't going to jail for 40 years because they had a fucking little sack of weed in their car. And like whatever, fucking just I'm so I can't even the argument that this is tearing families apart is just like,
no, it was always a mess. It was always a mess. It never made any sense. His entire run never made any sense. Considering that Ed Markey is like doing a good job. He is getting endorsements, but those endorsements are all like old school, old fashioned machine politics, like firefighter unions. Sanitation, I think, has endorsed Joe, although I don't want to piss off any like body that's in a sanitation union and they're like, no, we haven't. Leave us alone. We're supporting Ed. Kennedy's mic is echoing a little. I'm so glad that I'm not the source of our audio problems. Kennedy, you've got
I think it is you echoing, actually.
Me? Oh no. Okay. Because you've got headphones on. Listen.
Look at me.
It's
isolated sound.
It's more likely to be me, but let's blame you because I'm tired of being blamed.
All right, we could blame me this time, just for, you know, this is a racial equality moment. Yeah, this situation with Joe Kennedy just sucks. And weed legalization is just the stupidest issue for anyone to be hung up on that's running as a Democrat in 2020. I don't care if you are fucking as blue dog gets. I don't care if you're to the right of Kristen Sinema. Be for weed legalization if you're a Democrat. This is stupid. Like, who even is like a Democratic voter who doesn't want that anymore? It's ridiculous. The polling all shows that this is overwhelmingly popular.
Another thing that Joe Kennedy famously said, your votes, your rationale for being in power isn't just about what you say in public and how you vote, which I wonder what is left. Is it inspiration? Is it a spiritual thing? Is Joe Kennedy going to like lift the spirit of America? I don't know.
Is he going to defeat the dark psychic forces that are
if Joe Kennedy ran on defeating the dark psychic forces, I might be like a little bit more intrigued.
He'll never get that Marianne endorsement. It's not coming.
I don't think so.
Joe, if you're out there, you're hoping for that sweet, sweet Marianne endorsement that's been helping so many primary challengers raise their profile and take it to the next level. It's not coming. I promise you, bud. Just take it from me.
I want to actually read an excerpt from Boston Magazine. Do you have something else you want to hit first?
No, go for it.
Okay.
We got to wrap this up pretty soon anyway, because we got collab with another podcast.
Oh, that's right. I would love to do an entire hour on this, but well, this is good enough and interesting enough that I do want to kind of touch on it. It is just from a very long article about Joe Kennedy's run, and I'm just going to knock it in here.
Yeah, give us a little hit of this shit. It's fucking dork shit.
Absolutely. So here is an excerpt from a Joe Kennedy rally, and one of the district attorneys is, endorsing him. And so here is what they gave in the speech. We want someone who's smart, someone who has empathy, someone who is committed, someone who's honest. Check, 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 check. And the crowd breaks into applause. Kennedy takes the stage. My name's Joe. Hopefully some of you know that. I've got a twin brother named Matt. I like to say the 8 minutes separating us at birth were the 8 greatest minutes of his life. Everyone laughs. Hoo, 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 ha. Just that entire rationale of he's smart, he's committed. Doesn't it remind you of like the Biden total lack of rationale?
Yeah, definitely. Like I was saying earlier, every comment that I've seen in support of Joe Kennedy, no one is actually able to like point to something like if there was something like, oh, Joe Kennedy wants to author like a really strong gun control law. I'm just going to use that as my example again. And it's something that Ed Markey is not into, hasn't been pushing for, but Joe Kennedy is really into it. And there were some voters that were like, yes, gun control is like one of my number one issues. And so when I heard Joe Kennedy was running on a strong gun control platform, I said, I got to look into this. Like I've never heard anything like that. There's no policies that you can link Joe Kennedy to. There's no ideology. No. There's no sense of progress or even really identity to the run outside of his dynasty. Like that's it. It's just, I'm a Kennedy.
Charles.
Guess what? I'm a Kennedy. Elect me.
Why not? Look, would it make some libs feel better that Kennedy Cooper was in the Massachusetts, or New Mexico Senate? Either way, especially because who are your senators?
So what? We actually have an election going on right now for one of them, for one of the Senate seats, but there's not even really a primary. It's actually a dynasty situation. I'm glad this came up because it's actually very appropriate. So we have an open Senate seat here in New Mexico. Tom Udall is finally retiring. It's a very cool thing because he's just a very mediocre guy who's just been in that chair forever, just a boring white guy. And he's retiring and it's great. And so the seat is technically open and there was going to be like a somewhat contested primary. It looked like at first, but one of the guys who's running is a congressional rep right now. He's the cousin of the governor. The Lujans are a political dynasty that have been, semi in charge of New Mexico for a long time. And Ben Ray Lujan basically forced everybody else out of this race. And just like they were told, more or less, as far as I could tell, that basically like you aren't going to have a New Mexico political career if you keep this up, period. And so he forced everybody else out. And now it's basically just Ben Ray Lujan running for Senate. That's it. Good night. No need for a primary. And it sucks. Like we're literally dealing with the same thing here and it totally sucks these dynasties cannot do a good job of representing us. They only care about furthering their own political legacy.
And we have a similar situation in Georgia. We've got like Kelly Loeffler and Brian Kemp. They're more of a friendship relationship, but like her husband like runs the New York Stock Exchange. Like it's all a big club and you ain't in it. Listen, I've got, before we like turn our heads towards rapping, I actually have the rest of that Joe Kennedy quote about, you know, his rationale for running.
Oh, okay, let's go.
There's an awful lot of opportunity that comes with being a senator from Massachusetts. And with due respect to Senator Markey, who is a good man, there's more to this job than the way you vote and the bills that you file. It comes with an ability to leverage that platform to address the issues we're talking about. And with due respect to the senator, if you're not going to leverage that now, given what is at stake for the Democratic Party, for the values we hold dear in our Commonwealth that have been targeted by this administration literally from day one, if you're not doing it now, then when? This is like your central rationale. And it seems like you're saying the clout game is why I'm running.
Yeah, there's more to this job than voting and bills. Okay, what is the more to this job that he's referring to?
If Joe Kennedy was like an ideological, like one of a kind, like if he was running as AOC, like if AOC was primarying like some backbencher, like I guess Schumer and Gillibrand both have some amount of profile, but like let's say it's somebody nobody's heard of, and she's like, well, you know, that national advocacy to use that Senate seat to promote issues, that's important, sure. But Joe Kennedy is running to like the center right of the Democratic Party. There's plenty of people who are in that exact same position. Nothing is being missed. Nothing is being lost with Joe Kennedy not being in the United States Senate. He's running as just like another person to fill that seat. And really, we know that there is a blackout on really presenting progressive policies and policymakers. So it's not like Ed Markey is going to get that kind of attention unless he's like a bomb thrower. The only people who seem to really get that media attention are the Squad, and that's because they fire up conservatives. But obviously, there are plenty of progressive candidates that just don't get.
Is it possible for you to play a video for the audience?
Yes, but the audio will be iffy. But yes, I can play.
I think I have the perfect thing to close out this stream.
Okay. Send it to me in the private chat box on StreamYard, or you can just share the screen yourself. One or the other. All right, I got it. It's coming up.
This is a video of Ted Kennedy describing why he ran for president, and I think it fits this conversation really well.
Appears if he really doesn't want America to get to know him. Why do you want to be president? Well, were I to make the announcement to run, the reasons that I would run is because I have a great belief in this country that there's more natural resources. There's the greatest educated population in the world, the greatest technology of any country in the world, the greatest capacity for innovation in the world, and the greatest political system in the world. And yet I see at the current time that most of the industrial nations in the world are exceeding us in terms of productivity, are doing better than us in terms of meeting the problems of inflation. They're dealing with the problems of energy and the problems of unemployment. It just seems to me that this nation can cope and deal with its problems in a way that it has in the past. We're facing complex issues and problems in this nation at this time, but we have faced similar challenges at other times. And the energies and the resourcefulness of this nation, I think, should be focused on these problems in a way that brings a sense of restoration in this country by its people in dealing with the problems that we face, primarily the issues on the economy, the problems of inflation, and the problems.
All right, just stop at any time. This guy asked Ted Kennedy why he wants to be president, and he just pauses for the longest time.
Well, why do you want to be president? Big boy chair, big boy chair. You can't give the real answer, which is just like my life has been built around the pursuit of power, and this is
Like,
the logical next
And then
step.
he just gives the weirdest rambling answer about something, the American potential.
I
This is
believe our
Joe
best
Kennedy
days
in
are
a
ahead of us.
nutshell.
Yeah,
In this Boston Globe article, it's the same exact shit. Why do you want to be a senator?
I feel like our
right.
best days are still ahead of us. As Americans, the best. We have such great potential. Something. Like it's much. It's word salad.
So on that note, I think we can wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up.
Don't vote for Joe Kennedy.
Good
Support
Lord.
Ed Markey. This shit is stupid.
It's ridiculous that we have to devote a day to talking about this person, who's just like literally just a stuff suit, and will immediately sell you out, and has done so before, and will do so again. Don't do it.
Don't
All
do
right.
it.
That's it. Bye, y'all.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye bye.